Most people think staying warm in a freezing blackout means feeding a fire all night, waking up every 2 hours, stumbling half asleep to throw another log into a hungry metal stove. Miss a few hours, and the house turns into an icebox. Pipes freeze, your breath fogs in the air, and suddenly survival isn't dramatic, it's just slow, miserable cold. But here's the strange part. Nobody tells you. There exists a stove that you fire once, just once, and it quietly releases heat for the next 24 hours. No constant feeding, no midnight panic. One fire, and the house stays warm all day and night. It sounds almost fake, like some prepper myth from the internet. But this technology is centuries old, built on physics so simple that once you understand it, you'll start wondering why modern homes forgot it ever existed. And if you're serious about surviving a long winter blackout, this thing might be one of the smartest systems ever designed. Here's the uncomfortable truth about most wood stoves. They're basically metal boxes designed to burn wood as fast as possible. The fire roars, the metal heats quickly, and your room gets hot fast. Sounds great, until the fire dies. Because metal doesn't store heat very well. The moment the flames disappear, the warmth vanishes with it. Your house becomes cold again within a couple hours. Which means survival turns into a constant cycle of feeding the stove like it's some demanding creature that never sleeps. But masonry heaters operate on a completely different idea. Instead of blasting heat instantly, they capture it, store it, and release it slowly like a thermal battery. When you light the fire inside a masonry heater, the flames burn extremely hot and fast, often reaching temperatures far higher than a typical stove. But the heat doesn't rush straight into the room. Instead, it travels through a maze of internal channels built from stone, brick, or clay. As the hot gases snake through those passages, the massive masonry walls absorb the energy, thousands of pounds of stone quietly drinking in the heat. And once the fire goes out, the stored warmth begins leaking back into the room, slowly, steadily, sometimes for an entire day. Now think about that for a second. One intense fire, then 24 hours of steady warmth radiating from stone walls. No smoke-choked smoldering fire. No waking up every few hours to reload logs. Just quiet, gentle heat spreading through the house. That's the first survival insight people miss. In extreme cold, thermal mass beats constant burning. Storing heat is often more efficient than producing it nonstop. This principle shows up everywhere in survival science, from desert shelters that store daytime heat to military field structures built with thick earth walls. Heat that's stored in mass disappears slowly, because the energy has to move molecule by molecule through the material before escaping. Masonry heaters simply turn your stove into a giant thermal battery. And yes, this concept is rooted in basic thermodynamics used in building design and thermal engineering. But the second thing that makes these heaters almost unfairly efficient is the way they burn wood. Most stoves choke their fires down to make the fuel last longer. That low oxygen burn creates smoke, creosote buildup in chimneys, and wasted energy leaving as unburned gases. A masonry heater does the opposite. It burns wood extremely hot and extremely fast with full oxygen. That high-temperature combustion destroys most of the smoke particles before they even reach the chimney. Instead of creeping smoke drifting out of your house, you get an incredibly clean burn where nearly every bit of energy in the wood becomes usable heat. In survival terms, that means you're squeezing more warmth from every log you cut, haul, and store. When wood becomes scarce during long winters or grid collapse, efficiency suddenly matters a lot more than convenience. There's another detail most people overlook until they sit next to one of these heaters. The heat doesn't feel like a blast of hot air. It feels different, softer, deeper. That's because masonry heaters radiate warmth the same way the sun warms your skin. Instead of heating air aggressively, the warm stone surfaces emit infrared radiation that gently heats objects and people in the room. Your body absorbs that warmth directly, which means you often feel comfortable at lower air temperatures compared to forced air heating systems. In practical survival terms, that means less energy wasted trying to heat the entire volume of air inside a building. The heat goes where it matters most, into living bodies and solid surfaces that hold warmth longer. Now imagine the scenario nobody likes thinking about: a winter power grid failure that lasts days, maybe weeks. Modern heating systems shut down instantly without electricity. Gas furnaces stop, electric heaters die. Even pellet stoves become useless without power for their augers and fans. But a masonry heater doesn't care about any of that. It runs entirely on fire, gravity, and thermal physics. No electronics, no moving parts. Just wood and stone. One controlled burn each day keeps the structure warm around the clock. This is why versions of these heaters survive centuries in places like Scandinavia, Russia, and parts of Eastern Europe where winters are brutal and fuel used to be incredibly precious. The design evolved because people needed warmth that didn't waste wood and didn't require constant tending. But here's the subtle survival advantage that almost nobody talks about. Because the heater releases heat slowly and evenly, your house experiences far fewer temperature swings. That matters more than comfort. Rapid heating and cooling can create condensation inside walls, increasing the risk of mold and structural damage in cold climates. Stable, radiant warmth helps keep interior surfaces above the dew point, reducing moisture buildup. It's a small piece of physics with a big effect on long-term shelter survival.